Welcome everyone on second day of NAV TechDays. I hope that you enjoyed the beer tasting yesterday and you already wake up from the night and you are ready for some new knowledge you can gain here. And I will try to transfer what I know to you, and I hope that you will be able to use that during your standard work day, which I think you left for a while somewhere else than here, and you had a great time to listen everyone and speak together. The subject is build, test, deploy, and deliver your app by one file. I will try to show you how you can do that, and we will see what does it mean. But before we go to that, small recapitulation, because we had a session last year here about the CI/CD. We were talking about how to create repository and create the build pipelines and what we have, which branching policy we had, delivery pipeline, what is it, and deployment pipeline. Even you saw that picture. What does it mean for you, the CI/CD, if it is that? Someone was talking about some Vive in connection to that. But I want to see what's the current state of adopting CI/CD. Please take your phones and please vote now. Use that URL. And we will see how we are successful, if we were successful, or how it looks today with these things. I will try to look at the results, and I will show them to you. I will keep the URL still visible. That's, I think, very good result. But still, the yellow column is, yeah, that's we need to go down and have bigger blue one, because there is no why to not do that and just plan that. Yeah. Planning is something, okay, we want to do, but we don't have time. Maybe you don't have time because you didn't do that. Yeah. Think about that. Okay. How many people were voting? 100, 200 people. Oh, that's nice sample, I think. Okay, thanks. Oh, another slide. I will close that voting for a while, or you can still vote. We will continue. That's thanks for this information, because I think it's very valuable for everyone. Okay, how long it takes when you need to create new app, to create that app, to do something with that, test it, put it to the different environments, sandbox, and then install it or somehow deliver that to production environment. Yeah. That's the question, because we need to be as fast as possible in these days. And the question is, what do you need along that way? Because it's not short way from when you create the app to the production environment. You need to create that, develop, build, and test, deploy to QA, because consultants want to test that. Then you need to do the deployment to the sandbox for the customer to test that, do some acceptance things around and deploy it to the production. And then you need to maintain that app for maybe infinite time, we don't know. Yeah. But you need to count with that, because the app is not short time things. Yeah. That's something what maybe will be there in 20 years, maybe that longer. You need to think about that, and you need to count that. You need to maintain it, because You saw what Microsoft is preparing for us for next release, and we know that there will be some changes we will need to adapt to our application. Again, I'm in a situation that the PowerPoint is not reacting to the clicks. How complex is to create the CI/CD pipeline for that process? Maybe that's what you think it's so complex. We are planning to do that because we don't know how to do that right now, and it's so many steps we need to do. Yeah, we are afraid of that. Let's just do everything else we need, and that's everything. No, I'm using my. Yeah. I will try to show you how to do that in one file. We will see the result, but question is if it is good for us or not. Maybe it looks like nice idea first, and we will see later. And of course, we will do that by YAML file. We were talking about YAML already last year. Even Eric Waldorf mentioned that during his session. But we will go to more details this session, and I will show you what I'm doing in my pipelines, and maybe it will inspire you what you can do, and that it's not so hard to implement something. And we will try to keep it as simple as possible, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah, that's the KISS principle, and that's all what we need. YAML pipelines have few parts which we can use inside. We can use variables inside to set up some configuration. We can use resources which are on Azure DevOps, like some other repositories or other pipelines which are there, and so on. We can define triggers when to run the pipeline. Yeah, that's when someone puts new thing to the repository, or maybe we want each day or each week to do something. That's the trigger. And the main process is composed from stages, jobs, and steps. Stage is some isolated thing which you can, if it fails, you can rerun the stage. It will do again what is inside. Jobs are run to separate agents. It means some small applications running somewhere on some server are doing the job, and the job have different steps which are executed inside that job. That's whole idea of the pipeline. These jobs or the steps are doing what you need, like when you are doing that manually. It means you take some source code, you can compile that, put the output somewhere, and so on. Those are the steps you can use, and of course you can use the PowerShell steps, or you can use some steps which someone other prepared for you. Because the Azure DevOps is extendable, and others can create extensions to Azure DevOps which you can use, and they will save you time. We have two types of jobs. We have build job and deployment job. Because we have CI and we have CD. CI taking the source code and forge it to application. That's the product. Yeah, that's the build job and CI pipeline. And deployment is taking that application we created and deliver or deploy it somewhere. That's the deployment part of that process. And we can now do both through YAML. There are some possible things how to work with the variables inside the YAML file. This is one example, one expression which is used to define things which are known already on the beginning when the pipeline process is starting. It has some limitations, but are used on many places. That's another example how to write the expression, but that is evaluated during runtime. It means later in the process. It means it have no access to some things like parameters because they are already processed when we are running the pipeline. Yeah. And there is third form, which is sometimes named macro, because this is what is expanded in runtime, and during the runtime this is replaced by the value which is referenced inside. Yeah. We will use that later during the demo. Now we will go to some examples. We will do first the build. It means take the source code, create the application. We will deploy that application to some test environment and run tests because I want to test that the application I produced is still working. Then I will deploy that to QA database. If you don't know what is QA, QA is quality assurance. It means it's the environment where your consultants, for example, are testing that application. And then we put that through the process which will take our company certificate, will sign the application, and will deliver it to final destination from where you can install it to environment you want. I am doing the signature after all that, because that's the place when I say, okay, it is working, it is tested, I was able to install it to somewhere and so on, and I put the stamp on that. That's our official app. Yeah. And the last step will be deployed to sandbox in online environment. That's we will do by one YAML file, and we will look at the YAML file right now. I will go back to, or go to the VS Code. I think that's understandable for everyone. Yeah, that's the YAML file. Okay, we'll make it more understandable now for you. I think it's much better now. Yeah. What we see now is definition of my variables. There are two possible syntaxes how to work with the variables, but if you are working with variable groups, which is something you can predefine some values in Azure DevOps and then later use these groups with some variables predefined in your pipelines. In this case, you need to use this syntax when you have a pair name and value. I am using different parameters or variables here to have all the values I will need during my build pipeline process. Another part is the trigger part, when we can say on which branches we want to trigger the CI pipeline. Then we can say when some files were changed, we want to trigger the pipeline, and when some files in some folders are changed, we don't want to fire the pipeline. For example, when someone changed the documentation in my app, I don't want to rebuild the app. Yeah? Maybe I will have another pipeline which will take the documentation and process that and place it somewhere, maybe, and it will be a different process. I can use the triggers here to filter when I want to run the process as it is defined. That's the triggers and branches and path which you can use during that. And then we have another type of schedule. That's a trigger. That's the schedule. It means you can define when the pipeline will be started based on the time, for example, each week or each month. And Microsoft is using the cron syntax to entering that information. The 00 means midnight, and the asterisk means each day, each month, each week, day of the week. Yeah, you can set up like I want it to run in midnight on Sunday first, and so on. That's really. You have many possibilities how to set up that. Yeah. And again, you are selecting on which branch you want to run the pipeline in this case. The always parameter says, okay, run that even when there was no change in the code. Because maybe Freddy just generated new master image for BC and you want just test your app with that master image that it is still working and running. Yeah. Okay, first stage. That's the stage when I'm building the app and even installing the app to the container and running the tests on that application that it is still working and that all is okay. Yeah. You can see that there are so many yellow lines that there is something with the syntax. That's a problem that I'm using the syntax highlighter for Azure Pipeline in VS Code, but the VS Code know nothing about task I'm using there. Because I'm using extension for Azure DevOps, which I created for our purposes. It's open source, it's available on store, you can use it freely for no price. It's on you if you want, and if you want to change something, you can just create the pull request for that extension if you want. If I switch to just plain YAML syntax highlighting, it will be much better for me right now. Okay. Each job have some parameters again. We have a display name of the job, of course, and then we can select on which agent will run this process. Agents, the small applications running somewhere, connecting to Azure DevOps, yeah, could run on some hosted virtual machines or on your own servers, doesn't matter. And you can choose the pool you want to use, and even some filters. You can demand some features, and the agents have defined parameters if they are supporting that feature or not. I'm, for example, here requesting that it supports Docker. Then I set some settings about the workspace, that I want to clean up the workspace. It means the folder when the process will be running. I want first to clean it up, because maybe there is some leftovers from previous processes. Yeah. And I want to have a clean folder. And first step for me is to take the code, the source code of my application from the repository I am working on. That's the first checkout step. And if you don't put it there, it will do it automatically for you. I am having that step here because I want to set up the recursive parameter for submodules. And the question is, what are the submodules? Who was on my workshop this week about the Git deep dive? We were talking about the submodules. If we will have time during this session, I can touch that, but I think we will not have enough time for that. But please look at the submodules. It's something like a Git repository in another Git repository. Yeah, you can connect, for example, the depending apps together to have them available from one repository as you need. Another task is just installing some modules like NAV container helper and my PowerShell modules I'm using, because I don't know if they are already on the computer where the agent is running or not. That's just another task from my extension. Then I create a container with the parameters I set through the variables. Yeah, that's why I have these dollar blah blah things here, because I'm taking the values during the preparation of the pipeline. That it means it's on the very beginning replacing these values. And of course, I'm not including C-side anymore, but I'm including the test suite with test libraries only here, for example. Then I am working with NuGet packages to deliver, for example, things which I'm depending on. Because if I want to install my application and the application is depending on another one, during installation to my container, I need this depending app. And if I don't have it somewhere, I will download it from my NuGet server, which is Azure DevOps for me, and I will install it automatically. That's why I have this parameter, this step, which is installing the NuGet at all, because I want to be able to download the NuGet packages. Then I will compile the application. That task will find every app JSON inside the work directory, order them in the order of dependency, and will compile the apps in this order automatically. It means if there are depending apps, it will compile them, install them first, and so on. That's complex things, and of course I'm enabling different code copies to check the results. And if there is warning from the code copy, it is error for me, and I'm failing the whole pipeline, because I don't want my developers to have a code which have warnings from the code cop things from Microsoft. Then I will publish the application to the container. It means install, sync, and so on. And I'm, of course, keeping the verification of the signature, because the app is not signed yet. Then there is some PowerShell. I want to show you how you can work with the variables in YAML pipeline, for example, from PowerShell. That's PowerShell is here because I need to find out the application ID of my application or of my test application, because I'm using the later step which run all tests from that application. Yeah. That's the PowerShell which will find it for me, and we'll set through the write host here the variables in the pipeline. That's a special things which is supported to be able to run to set up some external variables in the pipeline through the scripts, and I'm just writing them to the log and later using them. For example, here to run the tests, because here is the variable I will use. And you see the difference in the expression that I'm using the dollar brackets, not the other one, because it is during runtime, because I need to wait till the previous step was finished. It means it must be in runtime and it's expanded as a macro. Then I will publish the results, take the information about the main app, because I want to know the name of the main app, because next step is just exporting the runtime application for me from the container, because as a product of this build, I will get my application or main application, I will get my test application, because I have both in one repository. Then I will have a runtime application ready to be deployed for on-prem installations. And I will have the translations as a result of the compilation. Because you know that the translation itself, or the translation G file, is not source code, it's product of compilation. Then the translation G file should be in your git ignore, because it's not source code, it's generated each time you compile the application. And I have here other steps which will take the or other translation files for the different languages I have and put them as a result of this compilation. Because, for example, my consultant could take that translation file, translate it, send it back to the developer, and he will just update the application with the new translations. Yeah. Just simple copy files task to move the files between folders, because I want to publish some files as an artifact, as an output of my pipeline. Yeah? That's for the app, and there is for the translation. And then I just throw away the container. That's the whole build pipeline. It's long, but it could make everything what you need. Next stage is to take the application I just created and just install it to a container and run the test again. Because, for example, I want to try if I'm able to update my previous version to this version. Yeah? I'm not doing that exactly in this stage yet, but I'm installing the application as it is to my container, for example, to check that all the dependencies are still available somewhere to download and it is working together. There is same things like in previous case, display name, environment, and new one is environment. But first, I skip the depends on. Depends on is telling Azure DevOps after which stage will this stage run. It means I am depending on the previous stage. There could be multiple stages I am depending on. It means I can run multiple stages in parallel, and one stage could start after all these parallel things are finished. And in vice versa, I can run multiple stages after one stage finished. Yeah, it means I can fan out and fan in. That's the depends on. And we have an environment here which is new, and we see that the job is deployment job. Deployment job is each time connected to some environment. Environment is something for me defining that, okay, I'm putting something to the sandbox or to live environment. And environment could have some settings, like if someone wants to use this environment, the owner of the environment needs to review that and needs to approve that. It means, okay, I can set approvers for the environment, and the pipeline will wait till the approver will approve that, and then it will do something. That's the environment. And you can see that deployment jobs have some strategies. There are multiple strategies to deploy something. Azure DevOps right now are supporting 2, and only one is have some meaning for us in Business Central. We are using the run once. It means just deploy that. Because another one is deployment canary, which is connected to Kubernetes and these kind of things, which are totally unknown for us yet. Yeah, maybe in some years, yep, we will see. But right now, each time you will use the run once deployment strategy. And of course, the deployment have steps again. Install modules, create container, find the information about my application. This time I have only the app file. It means I will take the app file through the PowerShell. I will read the information from the app file, which ID, name, and so on it have. I will install NuGet, delete files like runtime app, because I downloaded all the apps I produced, and I want not to work with the runtime. That I will just delete it, and that's all. Publish the application to the container, and during that publication, if there is a missing dependency, I will download the dependency from my server, from my NuGet package server, and install it automatically. Run the test, publish the test, and remove container. You can see, for example, on the step or on the task remove container that there is a condition always. yeah, I want to remove the container each time, even when the pipeline fails, or I cancel the pipeline. I want to remove the container because next time if I will try to create it, it will fail because it already exists, for example. Yeah? You can clean up after your run just through setting the conditions. Another value for condition is succeeded or failed. Always is even when you cancel. Succeeded or fail is if it fails or succeed, but not if you cancel the pipeline manually. Next stage, release to QA database. You see that it's a gate deployment step to another environment only, but nearly the same. It will automatically download the produced application from the build part, build stage. I will delete the test application because I am not installing test application to QA database because nobody will run that test there. Why? I run it already 2 times. I will delete again the runtime, just publish the application to some container, and that's all. I'm not creating container, I'm doing nothing else. I will just put the app and install it somewhere. After that, there is a sign and delivery stage, which is nearly the same, just calling another task to sign the application with some certificate, with some password. Certificate is saved in Azure DevOps as a secure file, which is automatically downloaded in step download secure file. The path of the downloaded file is then placed to some variable here, download secure file dot secure file path, which I can use in my next steps to work with that file. Yeah. Then I will create new artifact with signed application as a product of my whole pipeline. And this signed application could be used somewhere when I need that. Delete the files, get the version from the application because I need it, and now I'm doing some magic to create NuGet package. Yeah, NuGet is package management for different purposes, used mostly with .NET and so on. I'm creating that package through my PowerShell scripts, which are freely available on internet, and I am just then pushing that, or packing and pushing the resulting package to Azure DevOps artifact server or service. And the last part, I'm releasing to online sandbox. In one pipeline, it means it will be triggered automatically when someone updates my app. But because we are working with the environments, I can set up the review process on that environment. It means the pipeline will wait before it starts this stage to that someone needs to approve that. And it means it could be here, for example, 1 week, and someone will press the button that accept to release to that sandbox of this version, and this version will be released to the environment. This process is very simple, just removing not needed applications and calling one task, which will, in this case, release the application to this tenant, to the sandbox, through the automation API version 1, and it will not include the test application, and to authenticate to the tenant, it will use my application ID, which I created in AAD. That's another step I need to do. We can look at that if we will have enough time. And it will log in me through my login and password as a partner to that tenant. That's the whole pipeline. But you can see that it's 558 lines, 558 lines long. That's everything what's inside. The result will look like that. Sorry. Template app, and that is the result. What you can see is multi-stage pipeline. First stage, second is test, release to my QA database. Yeah, that's these steps or all these tasks were running to deploy that. Then I signed the application through these all steps and creating the NuGet packages, pushing them, removing the container, and then I was releasing to demo sandbox. You can see that I have multiple attempts here. Here that show previous attempts. Attempt 1, it failed from unknown reason because there was just error. Server is not available anymore. Yeah, it means I had a possibility to run these steps again or this stage again, and it was deployed successfully later. This rerun functionality is really, really new. It was not there 1 month ago. It was added the last month. There were some bugs in that, but it's already fixed. Yeah. The Azure DevOps are really going fast forward. Even the multi-stage pipelines were not existing last year when we were talking about CI/CD. They were planned, but were not implemented. Now are implemented and we can use them. That's the result of our pipeline. And if we have this file in our repository, it's very, very easy to create new pipeline manually. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to run that. Okay, pipelines, new pipeline. I just select the repository where my file is, select existing Azure pipeline YAML file, select the file I have, and click continue. It will take the file, prepare the pipeline. I can just click run. It will save that, and the pipeline is ready for me. If I need to change the process, I will change the file, commit the message in VS Code, push to the server, and the pipeline will use that new process to do what I need. That's the strongest thing of having the pipeline as a code. Because if you don't have it as a code, you need to manually edit the pipeline somewhere else, and yeah, it's another environment and so on. Now you can, as a developer, can maintain the pipelines themselves just by changing the YAML file. Yeah. Okay, going back to presentation. Now I have additional requests, because that's the one thing we did, build to deliver somewhere. But for example, I want to use this pipeline for my pull requests. I can't imagine that I will create pull request, it will trigger the build, and the result will end somewhere in the customer sandbox. I don't want to do that as a part of my pull request. When someone wants his code be integrated to the product, and I'm just testing that what he produced is correct. I don't want to release that part. I want to build only in this case, yeah? Not the rest of these stages. Or, for example, I want to deploy only master or release branch because I want to run this pipeline only for these branches, not when someone creates his own branch and is just testing somewhere there. I don't want something there. I don't want to build that. Yeah. And then I want to schedule the build with the master image, because I want to be sure that the next version will not break my application. It will work. There are no some things which are obsolete now and so on. I need to solve. For example, I want to test it. For example, 1 per week. We will look at that, how we can extend the existing pipeline with these things. Going back to YAML file, I will switch to another branch, which I have here. And instead going through all the things here, I will go to my Git lens, and I prepare compare here, where I'm comparing the current extended version of the pipeline with what we did in previous example. All the values of the variables are same. I just added one thing, that's resource. The resource is about that I'm using another pipeline as an input for my build, or I can trigger my pipeline when the pipeline, another one, is finished. Yeah? In this case, I will use it to download some produce of the output as an input to my pipeline, which will deliver that to some sandbox or live environment. Because as a part of the change, I am now trying to solve one problematic things which we had in a previous case. In previous case, we build it, test it, put it to the QA, and then we were ready to put it to sandbox. And if there is a approval and it is not approved, it will fail whole pipeline. And that's what we don't want. Yeah. Because it was built, it was signed, it was successful, only the release somewhere was not approved. It means I will now separate these two processes, but still trying to use the same file for that. It means I can have two pipelines defined, connected to one YAML file. But internally, I can do something else when I run one pipeline or second pipeline. That's what I'm trying to do there. And you see that's here we have some condition. Expression could be even condition. And in the condition, I am just comparing if the definition of my pipeline ends with release. It means if I create new pipeline ending with release at the end of the name, and I will run that pipeline, it will release only the application. If I will run another pipeline which don't ends with release, it will do what we did in previous case. Build, test, put to QA, sign, and save somewhere. That's one part of the condition. Another part is that I don't want to use that build stage when it is scheduled. It means it is triggered for the case when I want to test it with the master branch, master image. Yeah, because I'm using the schedule for that. If it is scheduled, it is not the standard common build process, it is different one, and I want to test it with different image. That's in the condition, and you see that the stage is part of this condition because it's indented. Yeah. It means it will be running, or this stage will be included only if the condition is fulfilled. I will move down there. That all was the process we had. And now I have another condition which is just slight different. It is only if it is scheduled pipeline. If it is scheduled, I have the same process, but when creating the container, I am using different variable, master image name. That's the only difference. But you see that it's really crazy that I needed to copy-paste this whole part here. Yeah. Okay. Those are the changes, and there is another condition for the test, the builded app, but it's just extended that it is releasing when the source branch for which I'm running is release branch or master branch. That's the condition. If it's master, it will be installed to my QA database and something. If it is not master branch, then do nothing. Yeah. And including even, and it is skipping the pull request build. It means if it is pull request, it will do just the build stage, but not the rest. That's all. Yeah. That's the conditions are here, and at the end we have another change just for the manual thing. When I run the pipeline manually, and the pipeline ends with release, and it is for master branch or release branch. Yeah, that's definition ends with that. It will run the release to sandbox. If I run just common build, it will not do that part. If I run the release pipeline manually, it will only take the result of the previous pipelines and release that. What is the result? It looks like that. If I go back to my pipelines, I go to the template app. That's the second pipeline. You see that this is regular pipeline which was triggered when I push some change to my repository. And it was a master branch. It built it, it tested, it released to the QA and signed the app and publish it somewhere. There is no release to the sandbox. If it will be pull request, there will be only the first stage, not the other. And I have another pipeline here created, which is template app release, which leads to the same file. And when I trigger that manually, it had only one step, releasing to the sandbox. It means when someone decided, okay, that app is ready for release, will run manually that pipeline, and that pipeline will take the app and will install it to the sandbox. Yeah? That's possible, and it's still using one pipeline. Okay, going back to presentation. Be ready to use your phone, because we are near the next voting. Do you like the result? Please go to that URL and vote. And I will share the result here for you. Yeah, still that's, you are feeling that I'm going somewhere, yeah, because we have still 40 minutes left from the session. Yeah, that's okay. That's, you are thinking about that. Definitely not. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Definitely yes. That's cool. But yeah, we will see. Okay. Thanks for the voting. I will say, okay, how many of you voted? Nearly 200 again. Okay, that's good. Thanks for the result. And I will continue, because the question was if you like it. I don't like it. Yeah. Because really it's a mess. It's a mess, and I can't imagine to use that pipeline in my processes. Yeah. The pains of the one file rules them all, in this case. It's that it's hard to combine for the different triggers, for example, because I can't make the triggers dynamic. In one case, only to have the schedule, and one have triggered when someone pushed something somewhere. Yeah. I can't separate that. It means both pipeline will run when I push something there, but they will have different stages running inside based on the conditions I have. Having the deployment to sandbox and production as a part of the CI pipeline is problem. As I told you, if you cancel the deployment, it will cancel the whole pipeline. Release will take sometimes the wrong result, because if you take the pipeline which was named release and you run manually, it will take the last successful build of the second pipeline. But the second pipeline is even doing the pull requests, for example, or builds of another branches. Okay, that there is a filter for the master branch only, but it will take maybe sometime wrong build, yeah, wrong result. It's impossible to separate the results to have them, for example, on some dashboard to see if releases are okay and standard builds are not okay and so on, because there is no difference how to make that. There is a complex file to maintain, of course. Change of the process means you need to update all the repositories. And for example, we have 3 customers with BC running, and we have over 40 applications already. And updating these 40 applications, it will be maybe 20 hours of work to just take the app, take the file, update the repository, push it somewhere. Okay, maybe 5 minutes per one app, but yeah, you can imagine that it's a big time you need for that. And it's heavy copy-paste. It means if I want to change something, I need to make it on multiple places. Let's simplify that. We have, of course, some tools to do that. We will move what is shared to shared place, to have only one place to change that, what is shared with all the pipelines we have. Leave in the app repository only what is really specific for that app, or which could be specific. It means I will be able to change something if the app needs something different, then I still will be able to do that. Yeah. And we will separate the things by purpose. It means there will be one build pipeline, one check pipeline with the master image, and one for deploying the app to sandbox and live environment. Let's go and break the file. Found the correct mountain for that. We will template the YAML file. Yeah, we will use the templates, and YAML file is supporting templates. We were talking about the templates already last year, but we will look at them closely now. Again, the demo time. Going back, now I switch again to my pipelines here. Exit the Zen mode, open the Git lens, and look at different compare here. First thing is that I have now four files here. One is the original pipeline I had. You can see on the left, on the left is the one we had. On the right is the new things, the simplified one. You can see that many variables were moved to separate file, which is named build YAML file, and I'm including that file and all the variables inside in my YAML file, which will create the pipeline. Yeah, that's the template as for variables. I leave some variables in the pipeline file because they are more technical. I am not expecting that they will be changed too much. All the variables which are in the build YAML are connected, for example, to which server I want to release this app, and the developer could change that, and in this way he can decide to which QA database the app will be installed automatically. Yeah? It means developer could change it more often, for example, but the predefined things will never be changed, for example. I removed the schedule because the schedule is for another reason there, to test with master image. It will be separate file. We added one resource. One resource, because that's the resource where our templates are placed. That's the central repository for the templates we will use in our pipelines. If we want to change something, I will change it in these templates, in some specific repository I have for them, and all the pipelines using that templates will automatically use the new process next time when they will trigger. That's the repository. In this case, it's on my same server. It means I don't need to tell the server name. I'm just telling, okay, use the master branch for this case, because I can have, for example, beta template branch where I am preparing some new things, and only one app could use that, and I can test the templates on that app. And the stage, this whole stage, this whole things which is red on the left, is now only these few lines on the right. Because I'm calling the template file from the repository, that's the cbuild stage YAML from repository templates, and I'm passing some parameters there. I can define in my template which parameters I need, and the calling process could set these parameters. If it will not set these parameters, some defaults will be used. I can define even the defaults in the templates. It means if there is nothing changed, I don't need, for example, the parameters. There are some other parameters that compare is just moving them somewhere else that we replaced with the template, and there is another template for another stage I have. Still having the conditions here, I can remove part of them, but still I want to run that only for the releases and for the master, and that's all. Yeah. That's the release and test stage. Then we have the release to container stage. It means to my QA. And you see that the template is not named release to QA, it's release to container stage, because maybe I will reuse this stage for some other database I have. Because I have a template, I can just copy this part and do something else. And because we are dynamic now, and the template don't know what is previous stage on which it should be depending, I have one parameter here where I'm passing the dependency. And if I want to change the pipeline somehow to have more parallel things or serial things, I can just play with the depends on parameter and do what I need in that. And the last thing is sign and deliver. Again, just few parameters, and that's all. It means if I switch to that branch, I will have only this file with few variables, some basic triggers, resources, and few steps with few lines. We have only 86 lines now from 558. Yeah. That's much better for maintenance and doing something. If I want to release to another server there, I will just copy these few lines and change the parameters. That's all. Another file which we have, that's the one with the parameters, nothing else. And another one is for the build with the master image. Few parameters, resources, schedule, no trigger, because I don't want to trigger that when someone updates the repository. I want to use only the scheduled one, and I have only one stage here, which is very simple, because that's the build stage with just master image as a parameter, nothing else. And once, in this case, it's once per day, it will take my source code and build it with the master image, and I will see the result if everything is okay or there is some problem, and I can start to work on that problem if there is some. And then we have a release pipeline, which again have only few parameters taken from my file with the variables. no trigger because I will run that manually when I need that. But if I want, for example, release each week or something automatically, I can use the schedule. And there is only one stage using some template. And in this case, I prepared template which allows me to release to 2 environments through one call of the template. You see that I have here 2 parameters, or the one parameter release 2, which is structured. There are 2 records, entries, objects, with different settings, one for sandbox, one for production. And the release for production is depending on the release to sandbox. If I just remove that depends on, it will do parallel release. It means both will be triggered automatically, and if there is approval, then, for example, the release to the production will wait for the approval, but the release to the sandbox will run automatically. If I want to have it first release to the sandbox, if it will fail, don't try to release to the production. That's what I like more. It will be defined in this way. Second is depending on the first one. And how the template looks like, we can go to the repository for the templates, and we can look at that. We have BC pipeline template, stage, multi-stage. Okay, I will try to make it bigger. That's the template for the stage. Have some parameters with some defaults already. And there is expression using each. For each, something from the parameter container name, create stage with some variables. It means I can dynamically create new stages based on some parameters I passed. It means in VS Code we have here test environment, and test environment, and now we are going through the parameters and container. For each container I want to release there, because we have even the container somewhere. Sorry, that's okay. That's release 2. There should be the release 2. And we create call to template release to container with the appropriate values here. That's the template for releasing. The template for building is something similar. Just default variables. And what we had on the original file is split it to different templates for the stages, and the stages are using again templates for the jobs. It means I have here job to build and test, release and test, release to container, and so on. And I can reuse them if I want, because I, for example, want to have different stage with new jobs, and I don't want to copy and paste the values again and again in around. That's the template and the simplification of the YAML file. I will go back to presentation. Now we have this situation. There is no one file to rule them. We have only one file to build them, one file to deploy to all, and one to master test them. Because those are 3 things we want to do with the pipeline. and we have 3 files for that, fourth with some parameters. That's the result. We have repeatable blocks. We have configurable pipelines. We need to create the 3 pipelines for each app to build, release, and test. And we need to create the pipeline manually. Or maybe we don't need to do that manually, because 3 pipelines for each app, it will take some time to create that for us. Okay, it's few clicks, but still too much. Okay, another voting. How many apps you can create per hour with all the 3 pipelines created, with distinct ID ranges assigned inside the app.json, with new gits applied to app.json and so on. It means how many apps you can prepare for developers to develop on in 1 hour. Please vote. What do you think? That's the question. And I will show you the result. Oh, again, I don't like that. Okay. Yeah, good. Why not? They are expecting something. Yeah, 157. Okay, there's still 50 people not decided what's can be. Okay, we'll not wait more for that. I will show you what I'm using. Of course, PowerShell, Azure DevOps API, or REST API, and everything. You can automatize even that. I will switch to my application. I have a small script. Sorry, what's that one? I want it to here. Up. We'll go up, and I will run that. I know that I will remove the path after the presentation. There is nothing hidden inside that. Now my script is creating the applications. There is only 10 applications to be created, and I am counting the time it will take to calculate the average of application I can create through that. All depends on the network speed. Yeah. You can see that I'm downloading the application from the remote repository, and that is taking most of the time. I will see the result, but when I was trying that on a hotel network, it was around 200 applications. If I was trying that on a wireless, which was faster than the hotel one, there was 500 applications per hour I was able to create. It means all depends on the speed of the network, and I think even maybe the 1000 could be doable on fast network. Yeah. If I run that on Azure, we have only few developers, and of course we will not need so many apps, but you can see I can create 477 applications per hour if I want. It means you don't need to be afraid of creating new apps. Yeah. Even if you have depending apps, the pipeline will work with that. Even the multi-root workspace in VS Code is able to work with multiple depending apps. Don't be afraid of that. But maybe the question is, okay, how I will find out which ID range I can use? Because in this case, it generates new ID range automatically for me. because I am using, oh sorry, that's not, I am using even Azure DevOps to keep track of my applications. Because I think, okay, we have, for example, feature work item, and feature for me is application. I modified the template for work item of type app, feature, and I added few fields there to help my developers to find correct application when they need to do something. Because they get user story and task, and the user story is assigned to some feature, and the feature is application for me. It means there is a decision process. When someone tells, okay, this user story will be done in this application, this feature, and the application is in this repository and is using this ID range. And I can work through the REST API with these work items and find next empty ID range if I want, and so on. It means, yeah, I can automatize that, and even the pipelines for these apps were created for me and were triggered. And you see that I have 3 pipelines for each app. App master to test, app release to release it when I am ready to release that, and the app which is pipeline which will build the application when I update the source code or when somebody wants to merge pull request, it will be triggered and it will test the result of the pull request. That's just about calling the REST API and doing these things automatically. It means everything could be automatized, and REST API are our strong tool. Going back to the presentation, much faster is to clean up all that. Yeah? I have script which just clean up all the work items and repositories and so on. It's much faster than creating the app. Again. How to deploy to on-prem? That's another question. Of course, you can take the application, copy to the remote server, and do it through PowerShell. Or you can have build agent on the server to do that, but of course, be aware of the security. Because if the server is the customer's server, the agent have access to that server. And if someone triggers something which is dangerous, it could make problems. I will not go this way when it is not my own server. On my own server, when I'm hosting someone, for example, okay, I can run the agent on that server and let the pipelines install something to this environment easily. Yeah? I will not use that for customer server. Automation API could be used as we were using it in online. You can use the same API even for the on-prem. Why not? But you need to have access to that API from the agent on which the build is running. You can use hybrid network for that, maybe. Yeah. Just try that. Or you can mark the builds somehow in Azure DevOps and run script on the server of the customer, and it will connect to the Azure DevOps, filter all the builds which are marked with some tag, download the product from these pipelines, and run scripts to install that. Yeah, I have this script. I will not go into that because not enough time for that, but it is doable and it's semi-automatic, keeping, for example, if you have a problem to take files and put them to the customer server because there is a security which is forbidding that, you can use that. You can connect to the Azure DevOps and download the apps, the file through this call. Yeah. You can install that through NuGet because we have now NuGet packages on our server. We'll look at that in a while. And of course, don't forget to update the license for the customer. And the question is, okay, how you will get the list of objects you have in the application? Before you had the one database and you saw all the objects in the object designer. Now, yeah, it's not a problem to create the tool, but this session is not about that. But you need to think about even that part. And how you will assign, for example, the ID range 5000 to 5009 for tables, which are pre-assigned in the license. Will you be able to use that in multiple applications? I think no. Okay. We're skipping that. Summary. We have all in one file, or we had that, but we find out that's not nice and not practical. We created multiple files which are better for maintenance. We automatize app and pipeline creation, which is not a problem if you want. We automatize on-prem deployment, or we can automatize. We didn't go deeper into that. You can download the app from the, or it's good to allow download the app if you are ISV to your partners. If you create new version, they can have access to your NuGet package or something like that server, and they can download new version each time that you release that. And of course, the translation is product of the build. Yeah. If we look at the server now, oh, sorry, again, wrong window. In artifacts, because I was running some pipelines in before. Oh, that's here. I have applications. One is main application, one is the test application for that. And if I look at the test application, you can see that because it's NuGet, it's even keeping the track of the dependency, that it is dependent on another application. I'm using NuGet just because I need only to download the top application, and if it have some dependencies, NuGet will download them for me too, automatically. That's one strong point. There are something like universal packages from Microsoft, which are very simple to use, but don't have this feature. Yeah. That's one way how to work with that, because from there I can download the app file and I can see, for example, how many times it was downloaded and so on. That's the artifacts. Going back to the presentation. I need to wait, it's so slow to load. Some tips around the YAML file, because I hit some strange things and I want to save you some time. Recursive expansion. If you use this kind of things to write your variables, they are sometimes recursively expanded and sometimes not. The difference is that if it's part of a process which is creating the pipeline on the beginning, it will not go another round. It means if it is display name of your task or something, it will not be recursively expanded. If it is parameters to some script, it will be expanded in runtime. Yeah? Because you can't update the display name in runtime. It means it will not be recursively expanded here. That's one thing good to know. Another one, if you get this cryptic error on the beginning, that's the error occurred and wrong number of segments. Who knows what does mean? Yeah, nobody knows that. I find out that mostly there is a problem in my YAML file that I'm using wrong version of some task, or the task was renamed, for example, and now it's have different name, and the error just mean you are using something I don't know. That's all. I don't know why there is no error, like I don't understand, I don't find this task, or there is no version like that. Yeah, wrong number of segments. Oh. Another thing, you can skip CI if you want. For example, when you are committing some changes and you don't want to trigger a CI/CD pipeline, you can just put some of these text to the commit message, and when you push to the server, it will not trigger the pipeline. Please be careful when using that. And be aware that everyone see that commit message. It means everyone will know that you wanted to skip the CI/CD pipeline. It means, yeah, you can, but it's documented that you wanted to do that. Yeah. But it's hidden gem, I think, which can help you to work with the pipelines. I think we don't have time to talk about the submodules. Let's be that, for example, for some next conference, maybe. Okay. Now that's time for questions. I have, of course, some shirts here, some microphone here. There was already some hands up. Okay, 3 here, I see. You were first, I think.
Thanks. Maybe you already showed it, but I don't got it. How you organize the pipelines? Because there's a list with all pipelines. Is there a possibility to temporarily disable it in this list? And the next one is, if I saw it right, you have your own repository for the pipeline templates.
For the pipeline templates, it's a separate repository. Yeah? The pipelines itself, as a definition, could be separated to folders, if you want to organize that, if I understand the question. And the pipeline, I think there is no way to disable temporarily the pipeline itself.
Okay, so you have to really remove them? The
remove
files,
and create again, for example, if you do want something to do that with that. But you can skip them through the commit message.
With skip CI, yeah?
But because mostly if there is a pipeline, you want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You could also in the DevOps interface override the triggers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. You can override the triggers in Azure DevOps directly. It means you will overwrite what you have in the YAML file, and you can change that in this way. Yeah. Okay. Those and there. Okay. Oops. Sorry.
So you're using the build pipelines to deploy to sandboxes and so on. Why don't you use the release pipeline? Because you then have the release tracking.
The release pipelines are part of the technology which was there before the YAML pipelines came. You can use the classic design things in Azure DevOps to create them, and they are connected mostly to the classic pipelines for the build. And I see them as a technology which is going to fade away, and I'm focusing on that because in this way I can version the pipelines through the version code, source code management. And I can keep track of what was there and how to do that. And I can easily create them again when I create new app. Yeah? In the classic release pipelines, I need to go there and manually copy everything or use some templates there manually and so on. Of course, the YAML pipeline are missing some features to track something, but that's only question of time when it will be available there. Yeah, because they are really new. They are there for not full year already, but still getting more and more features, and I think that's only question of time. Okay. Yeah. There at the end of the line, if you can throw that. Oh, yep. And there's a shirt for you.
It's okay, I got it. So, my first question is related to the variables. I saw that you put the variables in the YAML file. And is that correct? Because there is a place where to put the variables, even on Azure. Second thing is, every time you change something in the YAM file, if, for example, I have some policies, okay, even if I'm changing the build file,
Yep.
the CI will run.
Yeah, if
And
you're
it will
not
be-
ignoring
will be
that
useless.
in trigger. Of course, the variable could be defined in the variable groups in Azure DevOps, and variable groups could use the Azure Vault to save the parameters. Yeah? It means if I have the group variable inside my YAML, it will take the value from the Azure DevOps group variable, which is defined on Azure DevOps, and that could lead to the Azure Vault, and I
Exactly.
could take the parameters from
I'm
there
moving
if you
in
want.
that direction because actually I don't want when I change a variable, we start
Of
all
course,
the process
yeah.
of build.
I'm using the variable groups, for example, for the password and username and application ID, which are used to publish something to the customer environment. That's are defined not in the YAML file, of course, and they are defined in these variable groups or in the Azure Vault.
Okay, your templates were in a different repository but in the same project. What
Yeah.
if you have in a separated project?
It could be you can define the connection in the service connection in the Azure DevOps, and it could, and then if you are defining the resource, you are
Okay.
just using the name of this connection from the service connection, and it means it could lead even to GitHub or somewhere else, and you can use the templates from there.
Okay, I have to try that because I'm using an extension to do that and I don't want dependencies.
Yeah.
Last one, sorry about this. I lost my point, sorry.
Yeah, you can. That's
I will ask you later on.
yeah.
So-
Okay, that's a T-shirt, and that was the last one, last T-shirt, and yep. Another question? Yep.
Ask. You showed that you could create many pipelines with a script, but how long would it take to build all those apps, and what environment do you use to build those apps? So how long does it take to run those pipelines actually?
It depends on the speed of our servers in Brno, because I'm using agents running on our server, and right now, of course, there is only one agent running. It will take so long to run that. But the one pipeline runs around 10 to 20 minutes, depends on how many stages you have. But most of the time is just creating the container. Yeah. That's the biggest part, because I'm importing the test applications from Microsoft, and that is making it longer, because the container is up and running maybe in 30 seconds, but importing the test libraries is taking another 2 minutes or something like that. And this is the most time of the pipelines which it spends somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Some question? Another question? Yep. You remember, yeah? What's okay? First.
Simple question: is the code available, freely available?
Will be. Yeah, it will be definitely on GitHub. I already have some templates available on GitHub. Those are somehow fine-tuned, and they will be ready for your forking or whatever you need to do with them, and it will be available, definitely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Sorry. It is about the group tasks. I know that you can create 2 group tasks.
Yeah.
And a few times during your presentation, you were saying I can just copy and paste this.
Yeah.
Is
Of
the
course,
case
because
to
I'm
use-
using YAML, and group tasks, I think they are for the old technology of the classic pipelines.
So we shouldn't use that.
I think no. I'm not sure. That's true. I never look into that, because
Okay.
I'm using templates. Yeah.
I was starting looking at that. If I understood well, is the way to copy a list of steps.
Yeah, yeah.
And rather than
But-
copy
but-
and paste, you create your.
Yeah, but the problem is there are not source code managed. You can't commit different versions and so on. You have only one current version, and it is problem to update them. Because if you update them, even the old pipelines had a problem sometimes with that. Because they were included in time when you put them to the pipeline and copied, and were not nicely updated when you update them centrally. I will not connect that technology with YAML, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, okay. Then, if that's all, we have just time to finalize that session. Thank you for attending that. Enjoy the rest of the conference and safe trip home as you will go and travel. Thank you.